Is it okay, ma'am? Can you see my screen? To see me, just create a new part. So first of all, I will show you her design yesterday, which we made. Okay, so this was our design to make ID electrodes on a like to print on a 3D printer. Okay, so to do that, so in this there are two like different materials we have to use. One is non-conductive and another is conductive. Right? So if you are doing our design like as we do in this part, so in this the drawback is we cannot give two materials like when we load that to printer. So what we have to do, we have to design two parts separately and then we have to assemble it, right? So what we do is like whatever the non-conductive part that is the bottom substrate, that we'll design first and later we'll design the electrodes on the top of that. So first of all, the substrate, I'm taking the rectangle, center rectangle, and then just do this. And then we'll to give the smart dimension. So this was around 30. Okay. And then going back to features, extrude it, and we want this to so this is like the non-conductive substrate. On the top of this, we want the conductive electrodes, right? So there is an option from here. So from file, you can go to assembly. So you can see from file, you can go to make assembly from part. Once we select this, you have to save this file. So let's save it as okay. So that was the part. Like whatever we used to do, we used to create a new like when we go there. Once we click new, so we okay. So so initially हमने we'll do part and we'll design in the part. Now we have designed in the part, then we'll move to assembly. So if you open this, then a fresh document will open. Instead of that, we have opened from here, from file, and we have made this option use, make assembly. Okay. So here, since we are in assembly, it is showing us make assembly from assembly. But previously we were in part, so it was shown us make assembly from part. Okay. So now we are here. So this is like something very new. So the design sketch, everything will be remain same, but there are few new things here. So this is now our plane or face where we have to draw the sketch. Okay, so we cannot directly draw on this because we want a separate part. What we do, so here we can see the option on the top left, insert components. You can see insert components. These components are already designed in part, so that can be inserted here. If not, if you want to create it here itself in a new part, you can create as a new part here. So once you click on the new part, you are seeing a new part is created. So click on the screen and then just one click on the part. So you will see these options. Here you can see this one, edit part. So once you click on the edit part, So you will be in this part only. So there will not be any effect in the above part. So this is the advantage in assembly. So once you are into this, all the changes you made will be affected only to this part, not to this. So now we have edited this part. Okay. So from here, it is as usual. We'll select a face and we'll go for sketch. So now whatever we draw, so it will be taken on this part, which already we have done it in the part section. So what we do here, we take a corner rectangle and just draw a corner rectangle. I'm taking the center line so that I can make a collinear between two centers. As a control, hold, and we can make it collinear. So now if you want to make any changes, so it will affect symmetrically on both ends. Now again go to smart dimension. I'll give it as a 2 mm and let's keep the height as 50 mm. And then this distance I'll keep it as a 3 mm. Now if you see, my sketch is completely constrained, that is fully defined now. And now to make an IDE I require some fins. So I'll draw a fin, give it a dimension as 20 mm. And okay, initially I'll not trim it, let it be, or we can trim this also. And I'll give this as zero point 0.5 micron, 0.5 mm. And let's say it is still blue in color. Okay. So I'll keep it as uh, it's okay. Let it be 5 mm. Now if you see here, it is still in blue. So we try to drag. So it has not taken the length. Dimension. We'll give the length from here to here. Okay. Now the sketch is fully defined. So we have seen multiple fins, right? So to get all those fins, no need to always take a rectangle and then do the just like previously we have done. So we have another option called the linear sketch pattern. So this we have discussed already. So in the linear sketch pattern, we'll just load our sketch. So we'll select the entities to pattern and select this line, these three lines which we need. And if you see here, since it is selected in x-axis with the instances of 2, we can see a yellow line here. So if I reduce this 2 to 1, so there is no array made till now. So I don't require in x-axis, I require in y-axis. So then I'll increase the count in y-axis. So if you see, it is going top, but I want to reverse the direction by pressing this option. Okay, but the distance is very far, that is 10 mm. It is a default distance. So since this is already 0.5 mm, so this is already 0.5 mm, so I want anything which is more than 0.5 mm. So I'll change this 10 mm as around 2 mm, because since it is a IDE, there are other fins that comes and sits in the like in between these fins as well. So I'll keep it as a 2 mm. So if you keep it as a 2 mm, so the distance is point, like we remove the 0.5 mm, and then the remaining distance will be 1.5 mm. I'll show that. No problem. Okay. So the number of fins yesterday we made were 20. So I'll keep the same. So here the number of instances. So we can increase by clicking this up to 20, or directly we can write our value as 20. Okay. So if you can see this, so these are directly 20 fins we made. So again, we'll go to smart dimension. We'll just give one constraint. So as I told, this will be 1.5 mm. Okay. So if you see, all my lines from blue have changed to black. So in future, if you want to change this 1.5 mm, so it is, let's see, if you change here, all the fins will change exactly the same by the same distance. Let's say if I am changing it 2 mm, you can see that all the distances are equally distributed. Let's say if I'm moving at 5 mm, so all are 5 mm spacing. So that is the advantage of linear sketch. So for now, I'll keep it as 1.5 mm. And for 3D printing, as I told, all my sketch should be a a closed thing. So let's say here we can see only this section in a gray color, but not this, because so there is a overlapping line here. So it should be connected like this. So there should be connection. Because of this line, there is no connection. So what we do, we go to trim and we remove this line. So now it is connected. And similarly, we remove this line. So you can observe, the moment I remove these lines, it is making a complete loop. Done. So here you can see it is telling us no solution found, and also the reason is, if you can see this yellow color highlights, so it means that we have over defined the sketch. It means that we have given more constraints. So let's say by deleting which constraint we can, okay, so I've deleted the 22 constraint, so we got our fully defined sketch back. So now first half is done. First half is done, right? So similarly, what we do, so again, we'll do a sketch. We'll take a rectangle, and we'll give the dimensions. So this is 3 mm from this edge. So 3 mm from this edge. Right. Another thing was we'll make this line and this line collinear. Okay. And then similarly, we draw a rectangle here. And we'll give it as a 2 mm distance. And constraint as distance between this fin and this fin should be 0.5 mm. Okay. And similarly here, the distance between this edge and this edge should be 0.5. And also the spacing between this line and this line should be 0.5 mm. And obviously, so we give the length of this as 0.5 mm. Now if you see this, so now you can see the symmetry about this axis. So this is 0.5 distance and this is 0.5 distance. So one is done. And similarly, we remove this line. Okay. Now one side is like one fin is done. So if one fin is done, again go to linear sketch, and same way we don't want in x-axis, so we'll select the entities, one, two, three, and then so number of instances, we don't want in up direction, reverse direction. And similarly, previously we have kept the 1.5 distance, so 2 mm. So here also we'll keep the 2 mm. So you can see this copy is exactly matching in between the like in between these two fins. And now I just increase my count to 20. So in this way, with very less number of steps, we can make the design. So one dimension we have to give usually 1.5 sufficient. So completely my sketch is now uh, it is telling underdefined. Okay, because we have to trim these parts, trim this portion. So for 3D printing, ensure okay it should be a closed loop. So now we see so completely it is closed, and my sketch is fully defined again. Okay, so now my sketch is ready. So let's make the connection pads as well. Center rectangle, the connection pad. Let's say it was 4 mm by 4 mm, and then I trim the unwanted things. So we'll take a center rectangle to make the connection parts. Smart dimension is 4 mm, 4 mm. And then we'll trim the unwanted. Okay. Now we can see completely it has turned to blue. So what we do, we'll go to smart dimension, we'll give this value, and also we'll give this value. And select all this and make a vertical relation. So I'm selecting this by holding control. Okay, so I'll make it vertical here. Okay, and let's see in what direction we can make it fully defined. So if I move, so it is moving, and therefore I want to constrain by this edge. Okay, for that we'll just, so I've taken a, like I've drawn a line. So if you see this line is my center line. Center line I have drawn from this edge to this edge, and another line I have drawn from this center line. So what I can do is I can just make a copy of this and mirror it. Those four lines, mirror about this line, so that I can see an exact formation here. And similarly, I'll just trim the unwanted portions. This, so now we can see this. Right. So now everything is closed. It's a closed loop. So we can go to features and we can do the extrude. So if you do the extrude, you can see that, so that this is how like, the ID can be made in 3D printing, like, for 3D printing. So like, we don't require much height, so I'll keep it as a 0.5 mm and click OK. Once I make it, you can see, so we got a fine ID with 0.5 mm spacing. Okay, so now we can just exit the sketch. So this was our previous substrate which we made in part, and this which we made in assembly or IDEs. Okay, so now if you see, these two are separate parts, so we can select individually. You can select, if you're clicking on this, it just selects this portion, and similarly if you select this, it just selects this portion. So, and also to complete this, so it requires a reservoir to store our solutions. So what we go to assembly again, create a fresh part. Okay, and then edit this part now. And now I select this face again to do the sketch. Okay, since I need a reservoir, I'll draw a rectangle, just enclosing all these fields. And I'll give the dimensions. I'll give it as a 1 mm here, 1 mm here. Similarly 1 mm here. Okay. Now we have made a rectangle. Going back to features, extrude. So now if we extrude in this case, so we'll get a solid. So we don't want a solid because we want a reservoir. So that should, like, internally it should be hollow. So we'll select the thin feature here. So once I select the thin feature, you can see internally it is hollow with a wall thickness of 10 mm. But we don't require a wall thickness of 10 mm. We'll just put it as a 2 mm wall thickness. And the height of the reservoir, we'll keep it as around 5 mm. So this is sufficient, or 3 mm is also sufficient. Okay, and then we exit. So you can see this. So now we have electrodes and a reservoir on a non-conducting substrate. So these are the three parts: reservoir, IDE, and this. So for giving to 3D printing, like if you want for 3D printing, so we have two extruders. One will be conductive and one can be non-conductive. So for that, what we can do is just select these two things because these two are non-conductive. Okay. So first of all, we can suppress this one. So if you can, so if you suppress this, so you can see there are no IDEs now. Only these two are there. So then you can go to save as STL and go to options, change the deviation, so reduce the deviations and click the save all. Okay. This is base. You can save it. So now this component has saved as one component. And now since these two are done, we want our electrodes back. So we'll suppress this two. So now we have only our IDEs, right? And this should be a conductive. And again I'll go save as. So I'll save as STL electrodes. Okay. So now we have saved it two different files. One will be like uh, supporting substrate, that is a PLA one, and this is a PLA with conductive one. So we can load two different filaments. That's it. So this is how you make in assembly. Sorry, designing assembly. Any doubts?